This episode, I sit down with Jody Rosenblum of Photo Plus Expo, Dylan Hattem, and Ryan Perilla. Dylan and Ryan are a team, a manager, and a photographer team that have been exploding in social media on Instagram, on Snapchat, as well as Twitter. And they're using that platform to great effect to reach hundreds of thousands of followers and command nice sponsorships from some really high-powered advertisers and that sort of thing. So we dive in with both Ryan and Dylan to talk about how they're doing that. Ryan is the photographer. We talk specifically about how he has built that Instagram army and that social media army and what it takes to build something like that, as well as what cameras and post-processing tools that he's using. Jody Rosenblum from Photo Plus Expo talks to us about those guys speaking at Photo Plus Expo, but also we dive into what's next for this next Photo Plus Expo and how a giant organization like that is able to ebb and move and sort of evolve with this ever-changing industry. Really good interview. Give it a listen. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo and TWiP Talks. This is a really interesting show that we've got for you today. I've got a panel of three folks here, and you know the direction that we're going to take this interview is kind of unique. So we're coming up on one of the biggest trade shows of the year, and that's Photo Plus Expo. So from behind the scenes at Photo Plus Expo and WPPI, Jody Rosenblum is here to answer some of the high level questions about conferences and that sort of thing. Then we're going to dive into the weeds and look specifically at inside one of these conferences and some of the folks that make these conferences worthwhile for actually jumping on a plane and attending. Specifically, we're going to be talking to Dylan Hattem, who is working with an awesome photographer, Ryan Perilla, who is kind of exploding on social media. And Ryan's going to be at Photo Plus Expo explaining all of that explosive type behavior that he's got going on. So let's kick this off. Jody, first of all, Photo Plus Expo. I sent you some notes beforehand to get to brace you for my questions. But just set the stage for us. A lot of folks are look at conferences like WPPI and Photo Plus, and they're like, should I go? Shouldn't I go? What's in it? Maybe I'll just look at this stuff online. What do you say to those folks that are on the fence about going to a show like this?
Yeah, totally. Everybody has so much access to the internet nowadays that for these kind of shows, we're really aiming to do something different, to give people that reason to jump on a plane. So we've included a few incentives this year to give people an experience that is worth them coming out to the show. And one of those things that we've added this year is, for example, photo walks. We did a few last year. They did really well, and people loved them. So we added a ton of new photo walks for Photo Plus this year.
Yeah.
And it gives attendees the opportunity to go out and shoot with some of the pros, some of their favorite photographers.
Yeah.
So that's a really great reason for people to come to Photo Plus. We've also added something else for the conference, which are master classes. And those are smaller, more intensive. The classes capped at 50 people max. So that's one really great aspect of the conference portion to add on. And also on the trade show floor. There's so much new technology that's coming out. It's changing every year, every month even.
Yeah.
So I'd say that that's really a reason to get out there, to get your hands on this gear. You can only do so much by looking at specs and things like that on the internet, but to actually hold the camera in your hand, to try out different lenses, I think that's really an experience that Photo Plus provides for attendees.
Yeah, I agree. And on the whole photo walk piece of it, I think that's, I can't underscore how cool that piece is, because when you go to a strange city, like if you haven't been to New York City before, it's scary and overwhelming, or it's just like, okay, where do I go, where shouldn't I go? I've heard of horror stories, all this stuff. You know what, I'm just going to stick to around the convention center and not get in any trouble. So if you have someone leading you around the city and you're with a group of friendly people that are also doing the same thing, it kind of lowers that anxiety level a little bit, and allows you to get out and about around the city and get great shots, which is what it's all about. So yeah, I think that's really cool. So, okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. Dylan, so looking at, so let's switch gears to social media a little bit, and I'm gonna ask Ryan some pointed questions here. So, but looking at social media overall, we've seen, the trajectory over the years of social media becoming more and more important to photographers. Some people embraced it early and grew gigantic audiences. Other people were a little bit, on the Luddite side of things and said, it's a fad, I'm not going to do it. And now they're kind of scrambling. When you look at social media today, where does it sit in terms of importance to a photographer's overall sort of online business, from a business standpoint, for business dealings?
Yeah, so I can say specifically with my dealings with Ryan, and just to give everyone a little bit of a brief background, I met Ryan about a year ago when he had maybe 6,000 followers on Instagram. He wasn't really sure if this was a hobby, if this was going to be his profession. And I said, you know what, Ryan, I think you have this incredible talent. Why don't we see where we can take it? So building on what I wanted to do with him, I thought using social media would be like a perfect place to start, and be like one of Ryan's platforms where he could share his work, and not just like an end goal, where some people call Ryan like an Instagram photographer. But to us, we really like to use Instagram and Tumblr as a platform, because we can then grow an unlimited audience to easily come to view his portfolio, which is kind of on Instagram and on Tumblr as well. And so this allows us to have this crazy traffic coming through, because you have people all over the world who are on Instagram, on Tumblr, and on Twitter. And the traffic can be like very natural because they're sort of poking around and they don't need to just go to novicephoto.com. Yeah. So social media is incredible because it's allowing you to reach regular people. It's allowing you to reach brands, agencies. Ryan and I are now trying to work with art galleries to showcase some of his shots that he just took in India. And when they say, okay, like, why don't you tell me a little bit about Ryan? I can say, here's his philosophy on life. Here's his philosophy on photography. Here are some of his images. Oh, and by the way, we can back it up because he's got 100,000 people following him on one of these platforms. Yeah. And so it's just sort of like, there's a lot of people who have a lot of followers out there. It doesn't necessarily mean they're the greatest photographers. Yeah. They may have a good relationship with Instagram or with Tumblr and just get fed people all the time. But for us, it really is like people read articles, people came across his stuff. And so now every day when Ryan wakes up, he can say, I took this image yesterday. I can now show it to 100,000 people across the world. That's really hard for people to get their brains around, especially when you think about where things were, like, quote, traditional media, right? And you look at the numbers that local and some national radio stations get, and some television stations or TV shows that get, tens and thousands or maybe 100,000 or whatever viewers, and they call that a success. When you switch that and you have one talented person that can reach that many people while standing in line at Starbucks, it just sort of, it changes the dynamics of things. So, it's interesting. So, before I want to dive into Ryan, I want to get into your brain a little bit. But Dylan, one last question for you. You mentioned, Instagram and Tumblr and all that. I wanted to kind of understand the mindset of positioning from the standpoint of, is it like, are photographers today positioning themselves as, quote, Instagram or Tumblr photographers to, for a marketing standpoint? Or am I just a photographer and I happen to use these channels to get my images out to the world? Yeah, that's probably like the best question anyone has ever asked me about the whole new media and photography world. The answer to that is yes. There are people who identify themselves as Instagram photographers. Yeah. So by that, it's sort of inferencing that or inferring that A, I'm a photographer. Everybody wants to be identified as a photographer if they consider themselves an Instagram photographer. At the same time, they're really leveraging their followers and they're relying on that one platform to make the bulk of, I would say, like the bulk of their income if they're calling themselves Instagram photographers. Yeah. So you can say, I love photography, I take great shots, and I also have 100, 200, 300, up to millions of followers. I want to be able to promote a brand's work on my own page. To me, if that's the bulk of your income, we don't really like being labeled as, or I say we because Ryan and I are, we consider ourselves to be a team. We don't like Brian to be called an Instagram photographer because it buckets him into this social media, Instagram type of like phenomena where we think it's bigger than that. We think that Ryan and his photography is so powerful that he's able to push people towards those platforms to go to follow him. Yeah. So what we're doing now and what we plan to continue doing is, yes, Instagram is awesome. I would not have met Ryan without Instagram, and Ryan would not have probably the career that he has without Instagram. But we just sort of see that as one part of the way that we're going to like show his work. Absolutely. We want to like do gallery work. Ryan was just sent to India with this program called Global Leadership Adventures. They didn't want him to post anything online. They just wanted him to like go because they loved his work. Now more brands are saying, okay, you have the following. You probably have the following because you take great pictures. Can you create some content for us? You don't need to post it on your Instagram, but we want your images.
I love that.
So yeah, there's just a lot going on, and really the sky's the limit. If you want to just do Instagram type stuff, then that's cool, and you can get paid a really good amount of money if you have a lot of followers and take good images. At the same time, we sort of just see that as, yes, that's one way of showing his work, but there's also like hundreds of different outlets where we could potentially get Ryan's work out there.
I think that's a smart way to approach it, because you know how social media networks come and go. I mean, you could go back years back into MySpace and Friendster and all that stuff. They come and go, and to disassociate yourself, not disassociate in a negative way, but to be smart about building your personal brand and positioning the network that you're on as kind of a vehicle for you that you can then replace with another vehicle when that's the flavor of the week is really, really smart, I think.
Yeah. I would say one last comment on that is like, Ryan and I, we always say like, let's pretend Instagram were to end tomorrow or Twitter were to end tomorrow. Would you still be there? Like, would people still know your work? And so that's why like we try doing as much like media and outlet and trying to now find galleries, because when somebody does Google Ryan Perilla, we want there to be a whole bunch of different things out there than just one social media platform. Not hating on that platform whatsoever. We love Instagram, we love Twitter, we love Tumblr. We just don't want to be siloed into living in this like online social media environment.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you could. It's like driving a car, right? You could have a Ferrari or a Tesla. They're awesome cars, but you're still a driver. You can get into another car if you want and drive just the same, right?
100%. That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah. So Ryan, let's dive into you a little bit. So you're the star of the show. We've been talking about you and how you've grown this massive social media following and all that. Give us a little background on yourself. How old are you, and how'd you get started in photography?
So I'm 16 years old. Started skating when I was around 8, and about at the age of, I would say, 12 years old, I would bring my sister's iPod Touch to go skateboarding and stuff, take photos of my friends skating, whatever. Just skating around in general showed me a lot of the city. Yeah. And I was always into like taking photos with the iPod Touch, editing, and just posting to this app was something insane. We'll jump into social media again later. Yeah, we're going to talk about the photography, right? I kept taking photos with this iPod Touch, then the camera in my house. Just like started.
You just start doing it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, just kept doing it.
And that's how a lot of photographers get started. I mean, they're like, it's one of those things where you dive in, you're like, okay, I take a couple pictures and people's like, oh, wow, you look like you might have a little talent. And that fuels you, and you go do some more and then some more. And then you start developing your own personal style. And boom, things start happening. I don't know if it's boom, you start getting hundreds of thousands of followers like you did, but things start happening. So, oh, go ahead, Jody.
That's also really amazing is that, these kids that are 16 years old have access to this technology now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of putting it in their hands. And it's like, hey, you don't need necessarily 50 grand to go out and buy a nice camera. You can get started on something like an iPod Touch or whatever you get started on. And I think that's the beauty of the emerging technology that's happening nowadays.
Yeah, it's the beauty of it. And I can imagine that network executives and, those folks that were traditionally the gateholders to the world's ear, are shaking in their boots. Because now Ryan, I mean, sure, they could drop a check on Ryan and maybe beg him to say something, but he has the power now to do what traditionally they had the power to do. And the dynamics change. And now Ryan, being in that age group demographic, is much more believable, and relatable to other people in that demographic than some $2 million ad campaign they run. It's just, the whole thing shifts. I think it's a really important nuance. So Ryan, back to I want to jump into the photography a little bit, but on the social media side of things, when you grew your follower base, or when you were in the process of growing your follower base to where it is today, did you have a strategy doing that, or was it completely organic? Like people just started seeing your work and they told two friends and so on and so on and so on?
Well, Instagram, as you post a photo, your whole feed kind of changes, right?
Yeah.
And throughout time, I kept this consistent style, I guess, or just look on the feed that people enjoy. And what I do, you ever heard of the app Visco?
Yeah.
It's like a photo editing app.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great app. I would lay out my photos on there before I would post on Instagram, just because it's visually appealing, and I guess that just makes people want to follow me even more when they see that it's organized in a not only color order, but also the shape order, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's just visual consistency across the images. Yeah. You look at some Instagram feeds, like mine probably. And it's here's a shot of a portrait that I did. And then here's a landscape. And then, okay, here's me standing in front of a Golden Gate Bridge, so there's not necessarily a whole lot of form and function or consistency. You're saying you have consistency both in composition and color palette, so that kind of draws people in when they look at your feed as a whole, right?
Yeah, I would also say with Ryan's feed, specifically, when you keep a consistent style and you're posting on a consistent basis, it's almost like people are waiting for you to come and post. And so when you do post, people get extra excited about it, and the more people that are coming in, then you can view people's activity on Instagram, and you'll be able to see who's liking and who's commenting on someone's picture. And so the consistency of when you're posting, as well as that style that you're posting, it is really important, because if you're doing a selfie one day, 5 incredible photos another day, a picture of your dog the next day, people are a little confused as to what you're really trying to go for. And I think also what Ryan was saying with the Visco stuff is, on the app itself, you can have a library, sort of your photo album. Mm-hmm. So he would have 20 pictures ready to go before he even posted to Instagram, and he'd see exactly how it was laid out, because it was the 3 across that you'd be able to see.
Yeah.
So you could sort of pick and choose okay, let me move this picture over here, let me move this picture over there. And then when you look at the gallery, it sort of just flows really nicely.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Most people think one-dimensionally, right? Where it's one photo at a time, it's okay, I got a new photo, let me post that. Oh, I had, yeah, thinking of it long-term like that is brilliant. That's good. Kudos. Congratulations on that. I want to, before we run out of time, Ryan, I want to dive in a little bit and talk about the gear that you're using. So when you're out doing these photos, you mentioned the iPod Touch. Are you specifically shooting only on the iOS devices? Or are you using a more traditional camera and importing the photos in, or like how does that work?
Yeah, so the iPod Touch, I haven't touched that in a while. That was like the early days.
Okay.
Right now I'm using a 5D Mark III along with multiple Canon lenses.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't ever post photos with iOS devices anymore. Even though like I'm really shocked at what these devices can do.
Yeah.
Ryan, what lenses are you shooting with?
I shoot with 70 to 200 millimeter Canon lens, 50 millimeter, 24. It's just a few to name.
So what do you say to people that are like, well, you're not a true Instagram photographer if you're not shooting with the camera that's on the device that you're posting with? It's cheating using a DSLR, man. What do you say to those folks?
He says he's not an Instagram photographer.
There you go. There you go. And that's what I say. I'm a photographer, right? You're a photographer, and Instagram happens to be the car that you chose to drive right now.
Exactly.
Let's go. So Ryan, what about other services? So when, like, say in the fashion industry, I've seen photographers specifically seem to be gravitating towards Instagram over Facebook and almost saying, we don't post anything on Facebook. It all goes to Instagram these days. Is that your flow as well? Just primarily, at least right now. I know, you're not chained to it, but primarily is Instagram your first stop, and then you forsake Facebook, or are you also posting on Facebook?
Mostly just Instagram for now, mostly. Cool. I made a Facebook, not doing much with it yet, but I might be doing some soon.
Yeah, Dylan's over there. Yes, we may be doing something on Facebook.
Yeah, it's actually funny. He just made his first Facebook page like 4 weeks ago, just for fun. He didn't even have a Facebook before. Nowadays, it's like Instagram, #1, Snapchat people, of course, use. And it's actually interesting, going back to social media, you're seeing a lot of like photographers, and like we'll use the term like influencers. Mm-hmm. They're now incorporating like Snapchat into their play as well. And so what happens is Nike says, hey, we want you to go up to do a shoot, share with your followers. What they'll do is they'll Snapchat the entire back behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then they'll tell people after they post an Instagram shot, make sure you check out the Snapchat. So now they're sort of like all juggling. So it's check out the Snapchat, check out Twitter. And so now it's like that's the term that people use. If people don't like the term Instagram photographer, a lot of term people use is like they're influencers. So Ryan gets asked to do these like influencer projects where, yes, we get it. Like you take really good pictures, but at the same time, you also have 100,000 followers. So what he can theoretically do is not only use Instagram as his platform, but he's got a ton of followers on like his Snapchat too, for example.
Yeah.
And so when brands say like, we really want to do like a big social media campaign, what can you bring to the table? It's not just Instagram. People want to know that you have a ton of Tumblr followers, you have a ton of Twitter followers, you have a ton of Snapchat followers, and the more you have across the board, the more money you're going to get paid.
It's a portfolio. Yeah. We should do a whole separate interview on that piece of it. Just
let me know. We're down whenever you want to do it.
Yeah, I totally want to do one, because that's a whole different thing. I mean, old school ad buys and buying time on commercials and giant expensive outdoor billboards and magazine ads that no one ever sees. All that stuff is like Brontosaurus is walking around, and we've got this dynamic stuff that is just came out of nowhere and is hitting the media giants in the jaw. So it's crazy. So what Dylan, while you're on it, you mentioned Snapchat. What about Periscope and those folks? Is there like a different kind of audience there?
So I don't personally have Periscope. I know a few people have tried getting into it, and it literally had like a 4-week period where everyone was like really excited about it.
Yeah, when I stopped the notifications, I remember that window.
So I'd say maybe 2 months ago, I heard a lot about it, and everyone was really excited about it. And honestly, I haven't even like heard that name like in the past like maybe month.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat are the kind of the trifecta right now.
Yeah, I would say Instagram #1, and then Snapchat is like definitely coming up. definitely like a big player. Not necessarily for like photography in itself.
Yeah.
What are you saying, Ryan?
There's like a Snapchat moment nowadays. It's like programmed in people's head. It's you see something funny and you just gotta Snapchat it, stuff like that.
That's cool. Interesting. All right. See, yeah. Wow. This is an awesome world. So, okay, one last question, Ryan. So a couple of weeks ago, or I guess recently, Instagram issued an update, and now they are not square anymore. So going back to what you were saying earlier about defining your style and your color palette and really thinking through the grid, how does that affect you? You know, were you happy when they made that change, or you're like, oh man, I built everything on square, now I got to figure out this non-square thing?
It was amazing. I'm so happy for it. A lot of my photos, I have a lot of photos that I haven't posted just because they don't look good cropped in a square.
Yeah.
So now that I could post non-cropped photos, it's like you get to see the full thing. Because I really put a lot of effort into composing my shots well, and you not being able to see the full shot in a square is sometimes not satisfying.
Yeah, no, I agree. I personally think that they should have done that a long time ago. In fact, on the last This Week in Photo, we were talking about them making the move, and we did a little research. I think it was either TechCrunch or Petapixel or somebody had reported that they talked to one of the product managers at Instagram, and turns out that the decision to go square was kind of an aesthetic decision rather than, you know, let me build the best platform for photographers to show their work. It was more of, hey, things look better square, so let's make it square.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and that's fine. You know, when you're building something, and it had no idea how popular Instagram would be when they first kicked off the service, and they didn't even know video was going to be important, right? So yeah, this is really interesting where this stuff is going. Okay, so what's next for you guys, Dylan? So what's on the roadmap?
So coming up soon, of course, Photo Plus, which is going to be awesome. Definitely excited. Ryan and I have a little. We're going to be giving a little bit of a speech there. I guess it's called a speech, maybe a chat, presentation about how we use media to sort of fuel the rise of Ryan and his photography.
Oh man, that's cool.
That's going to be fun. Photo Plus, we went there last year. Awesome time. Really excited to check it out again at the Javits Center. On top of that, Ryan just came back from this awesome trip to India, like I said before. I have a portfolio. I'm trying to get the gallery contacts. I would love to get them in front of the right people. They're sort of like a mix of like Steve McCurry and Ryan Prilla wrapped up in one. And then we want to do some more brand stuff. Definitely want to work with companies that Ryan understands and that companies that understand Ryan. Yeah. We have like a great relationship with the Nike NYC team. They love his photos. Ryan loves working with them. We'd like to do more projects there. And honestly, like, we can really do like whatever we want. Like, it's
crazy. The sky's the limit. Yeah.
Ryan told me he wants to either do like a photo internship for like Time or Nat Geo next summer. Like, I'm confident that if I sent like the right email to the right person, I could probably get him a pretty cool summer gig at Time or Nat Geo.
In fact, that might come your way after this interview because people, they're probably watching.
Yeah, that'd be cool. He's ready to go. He got his kick in with India, and now he's planning his next trip. So
that's crazy. I could see a whole Nat Geo spread. You know, that's crazy. Cool. All right. So Ryan, what's next for you, man? I mean, you know, we know it's coming up at Photo Plus and all that, but photographically, and you know, are there any different directions that you feel like you want to take your work, or where's that going?
Well, I'm looking into different photographic styles. I know I do mostly street photography since I'm based in New York, but definitely looking into other fields of photography, I guess.
Cool.
Also interested in learning to use my camera in different ways, maybe learn some video. Not seriously, but I think it's great to do. Maybe I'll do some personal videos. Who knows?
Cool. Yeah. Hey, you're an image maker and you're building a platform and you're just getting started too, which is ridiculous. Just getting started and already, you know, explosive. And that in and of itself should be inspirational to people that are watching, because it's like, in the olden days, it's like, okay, I struggle, and 10 years later, maybe I'll build a following and I can start, wielding some influence. You were able to do it relatively quickly at a really young age, and you have at least another 60 years ahead of you in your career. And it's when you think about it linearly like that, it becomes really, really amazing. Jody, what about you? So on the Photo Plus side of things, you gave us a hint of what's coming up there. One of the questions I had in the notes were, like just tons of industry changes that are happening, and we on the last This Week in Photo, we reported on Pictage and their demise, and there's all other companies that are rising and all this stuff. How do you, as a person sitting at one of the command chairs at a major conference like this, how do you stay on top of all this crazy stuff that's happening?
I mean, I think like everyone else, we're constantly reading blogs. We're watching these types of interviews that we're doing right now. Yeah. We're following everybody possible on social media. So we're always listening to everybody else. And I think that that's the best way that we're able to really grasp what's going on right now. I think that some things that are coming up and that are really rising that we're trying to promote a little bit more at this show and really focus in on is drones. I know those are huge now. People are shooting them at weddings, events, really anything. Yeah, so that's one really new and exciting thing that's going on that I've been seeing. And also, like Ryan was saying, is the filmmaking world. I mean, photographers that have film or they have video capabilities built into their DSLRs now. So I think it's following the curiosity of what everyone else is kind of wondering and experimenting with.
Yeah. That's cool. So you follow that and that follow the flow and give them what they want at the end of the day, right? So
absolutely, because we're all tuned in here and we're, we're photographers and filmmakers and we're passionate about this industry. So we want to be able to follow these trends so that, we can help. It's all about adjusting to the way that society is going and embracing it really instead of, looking down upon it. I mean, these things are amazing and it's creating so many more opportunities.
And that's a perfect segue. That's a perfect segue into the last question I want to ask. I put it out to all three of you, but Dylan specifically, I want you to take it first. You guys are going to do this, what sounds like to be an amazing talk at Photo Plus Expo, which I'm going to go sit in on. Hopefully I'll be in the front row taking notes.
We'll give you a shout out.
Yeah. So when you do that, back into the olden days, photography used to be a very insular kind of profession where photographers are like, I'm not going to show you my secrets to, how I do stuff. You guys are going to go there and kind of show the world, hey, this is how we did it. Are there any concerns? Are you worried that someone's going to say, hey, I'm going to take the Ryan Perilla formula and do it myself and, take business away from Ryan? Do you care about that? Does that worry you at all?
So not really, because I don't think anyone Ryan's age can shoot as well as Ryan. And I don't really think there's, let me say this without people can try to copy styles. So people can try to copy Ryan's photography styles. And all he's doing is shooting with the Canon and using Lightroom. Yeah. And at the same time, my skills in terms of reaching out to brands and media and that side of things, people can, I'll tell people different styles that I go with in terms of who I'm reaching out to. But a lot of what I do is extremely personal in terms of really getting connected. If I'm reaching out to someone, I'm really writing you the note. I'm not BCCing a million people. When I send emails, I'm trying to really nail down on who I want to write that to. So I'll do an hour's worth of research looking for that perfect person and then spend, 15 minutes just sending them a quick little note you're the person I reached out to. And it works because I'm giving them something clear and concise, and I'm also giving them content or a story or good photography that they want to hear about. That's a lot of information that people could probably take right there.
Yeah.
But it's I don't think anybody has the combination that Ryan and myself has.
I think that's it right there, because you could give people the recipe all day long, but in the end, you guys are the commodity. There's only one Dylan, there's only one Ryan. So you guys together plus the formula equals success. You know,
Yep.
John Doe A and B from somewhere else plus your formula may or may not equal success. Right?
Yeah, and I want people to succeed too. I like Ryan gets emails all the time from kids who are as young as 12 years old asking about like how he's done it, what he's done, where he wants to go, up to like 30, 40, 50 years old. Like that's cool, and the more people get interested in our story and the more people get into the ring with us, then the more people are going to want to talk about it, and hopefully people can recognize Ryan as a leader, and they can recognize the work that I'm doing with Ryan as like a skill set and like being a leader in that aspect as well.
Yeah.
And so we'll just be part of more conversations, and people will talk about us more, and people will see more of Ryan's work, which is the ultimate goal.
Love it. Love it.
Thank
Dylan,
you.
while we're on you, so
Yeah.
where should people go to check out the stuff that you have going on, and Ryan, and where would you like the audience to go
Cool.
check you guys out?
So I would say first and foremost, check out Ryan's Instagram. It's NOVESS. You'll see some pretty cool work there. And if you want to check out any of my work, because I'm into photography as well, it's
Cool.
DHATTEM as in Mary, and that's on Instagram as well. And Ryan's going to kill me if I don't get him another website live. So hopefully in the next few weeks, novicephoto.com.
Novicephoto.com. Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a good domain. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank both of you for coming on. Jody, what about you? Where would you like folks to go to check out, you know, Photo Plus, WPPI, all the things that you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think photoplus.com, photoplusexpo.com is a great place to start. You can catch Ryan and Dylan at Photo Plus Speaking on October 21st. It's a Wednesday from 3 p.m. until 4:30 p.m. It's going to be an entire next-gen meetup, free for any attendees between the ages of 17 and 25. So it's a pretty unique opportunity. You just need an expo pass to get in, which are free if you register in advance. So we hope to see you at Photo Plus.
Awesome. Thanks to all three of you guys for doing this interview.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is awesome. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Oh, no, you're welcome. You know,
Yeah.
like I definitely, you know, my brain was fuzzy on that trifecta thing, you know, because like I said, Periscope's out there, there's Snapchat, there's, you know, all these different services. And to hear that, Ryan, to hear you being so successful with just that trifecta, you know, starting with Instagram, then Snapchat, and then Twitter as how the sort of foundation, and maybe what is it, Tumblr as kind of the
Tumblr.
catch-all for everything. That's an awesome formula, and that's a good takeaway that people that are looking to, they're scratching their head on, you know, there's so much stuff out there for me to learn and all these services. I don't know what to do, so I'm going to do nothing. If you start with those four, you should have a good head start. So thank you guys for doing the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All
Thanks
right.
so much.
See you guys.
Yeah.